I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Please remember to turn your phones and pagers off or to silence. Item number 1. Ask for citizen concerns. Unless you're here to talk about item number 8. That will be vetted at that time, or item number 9B, I'm sorry. Any citizen concerns on something that's not on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll move approval of today's agenda.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Radke to approve today's agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Items 3 through 7 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 3 is approval of the minutes of the September 11, 2018 meeting. 4 is approval of claims. 5, board administration. 5A is approval of resolution for tax suspension for initials DP. Item B is approval of resolution thanking and commending Todd Trobaugh for his years of service to Woodbury County. Item 6 is human resources, approval of memorandum of personnel transaction. 7, secondary roads, consideration of tile line permit and a permit for work in the county right of way. I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Radke. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item 8, source water community facilitator, approval of Pearson source water protection planning support and promotion. Please.
Hi, thank you for your time, and I know I'm going to make this quick because there's more pressing issues to deal with, but I know that you received some information. My name is Bridget Durst. I work for Conservation Districts of Iowa, and my position provides a free service to communities who have been prioritized by the DNR that are in need of source water protection planning. This is a voluntary and community-led program. We create and submit their plans. We create their plans, and then we submit them to the City Council and then on to the DNR. What I'm asking of you today is to consider signing a letter of commitment saying that the Board of Supervisors for Woodbury County is willing and able to commit time to prioritizing this area if need be. We don't know right now what that plan looks like or what those steps will include. A lot of the area that we're focusing on, and I think that you have a map in your information, a lot of that area that we're focusing on is outside of city limits, so it could be within your jurisdiction to make some decisions, and we would invite you to participate in the meetings as we are planning as we're planning the plan, basically, to have your input and possibly have some ideas for different resources and things that could potentially help people feel more willing to participate in ways of kind of observing their land use and some changes that they could make to their land use that would be having an effect on that groundwater that the community uses for their public drinking water. Any questions? I kind of went over that as fast as I possibly could.
Excuse me.
Mr. Chair.
Sir.
What has been your interaction with other counties who have signed a letter, and has it been generally a cooperative effort?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. Every community or every county that I've approached has signed a letter and has been willing to participate. We haven't needed to call upon them for anything as of right now. Those plans were just submitted and approved last year. So I went through this with 5 cities and one rural water system. So as a, we're not asking you to pay for anything or, do anything like that. It's just kind of developing that partnership and making sure that we have some clear communication in case something were to come up that needed your supervision. Any other questions? There is a copy of the template of the letter in your information. You are able to edit that however you feel is necessary. If you feel like the language needs to be changed or anything, if you want to add to or delete from that. It's just a template that I designed. But that is the letter that other counties have signed.
Any other questions for Ms. Durst?
So who was the initiator of this? Was it Pearson? Was it the DNR?
So when I began this position, they did give me a list of communities that they had documented having rising nitrate levels in their water. So that's what we're focusing on. And throughout that planning process, if other contaminants or other situations do come up, we do try to address them. But the DNR has initiated it, yes. And then I've been the one to contact the city, and they've signed a letter, and they are going to be beginning their meetings at the end of this month.
Personally, I'd like to dig in a little more before approving it. What other, typically when you're talking nitrate reduction, you're talking about, elimination of fertilizer use in certain areas, or elimination of livestock, or?
Not elimination of anything, I wouldn't say. Integrating conservation practices into current operations right now is really the best way that we could maintain a financial stability for operators in that area, and also address the situation at hand.
Who's planning to fund that then?
Well, I have partnerships with the NRCS and then the local soil and water conservation districts to help them find programs and things like that. That's what I do, is find those resources for the community, and as they develop their plans, kind of guide them and make those connections to those resources.
Yeah,
We're trying to keep the cost down for everyone. We're trying to utilize programs that are already in place.
How many years back of tracking on the nitrate levels do you have?
I can't say for sure right offhand. Early 70s is my guess, is what I've seen historically in other communities. I think that with the EPA, deciding when the 10 parts per million maximum contaminant level was determined, I think that that's when they started consistently tracking that.
So,
but I can get that information.
Yeah, because I'd like to know that information, if it's always just been high, or if it's, there's a lot of natural sources of nitrogen.
There are,
phosphate.
and in your packet there is a data, like a compilation of data, and you do see in their nitrate chart that it has natural fluctuations kind of seasonally, but you see a general rise in the level. There's not a dropping off and then a steady decline. And we are looking for ways also for the city to address what potentially they could be contributing to that as well, especially since some of that capture zone or that priority area is within the city limits. So we don't exclusively look for agricultural
Well, it
components.
could be how they treat their wastewater and what's.
Yeah, definitely. It is a holistic approach to making sure that everyone's ducks are in a row and everyone is, like I said, we're not putting a financial burden on anyone.
So in a nutshell, you're not asking the county for any financial support, just that we promote it and basically support it and believe in it.
Yeah. It would be nice to have that open line of communication if something were to come up eventually in the future, that the community would be able to discuss that potential with you. As of right now, like I said, I don't see any financial obligation on behalf of the county as of right now. I don't know why that would be, but education and outreach are really big, and promotion, just getting familiar with that area and helping the people in the area understand that everyone's working together.
But we do oversee the drainage district.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, as of right now, that hasn't been discussed. We haven't started our meetings yet, but that could come into play.
Point of order, we are up against a hard time
Yep,
for a
certainly.
public hearing. Do we have anybody that supports this or wishes to put it off to a later date?
I'd rather vote on it next week, especially if I have that data and, where this nitrate and phosphate levels have been over the last 50 years.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Do we need to vote to change that to a meeting next week, or?
Do you have a,
We can
want to make
defer.
a motion to defer this to next week?
Yeah, I'll move to defer to next week.
I'll second that. All those in favor to defer till next week, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Passes 5-0.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate you getting small.
Item 9 is secondary roads, but since we're up against the hard time of 4:40 for public input, meeting for discussion of local crossroad bridge incentive program.
Good afternoon, Mark Nair, Woodbury County Engineer. A number of weeks ago, the Iowa Department of Transportation sent communication to our office and indicated that as they review all the overpass structures on I-29 for whether or not they meet current height regulations, the DOT is offering a program that allows those structures to be taken out if the county would deem them no longer of use as a transportation structure. The program's called the Local Crossroad Bridge Incentive Program. The DOT offers counties $1.5 million for each overpass that would be removed in the course of that program. The board requested after that meeting, which was held in August, that we schedule a public information session where members of the public in that area could come in and let the board hear about whether these overpasses were still vital for transportation in the area. The secondary road department recommends that both structures be retained and that the DOT proceed with their project to raise both of those structures to meet the current minimum heights. After putting a legal notice in the paper and posting handbills around area businesses and banks, the secondary road department has received the following piece of communication I'll put into the record. The first is a petition with 100 signatures requesting that we not remove the overpasses and proceed with raising them. The second is an email from Port Neal Welding requesting that the structures be left in place, just paraphrasing rather than reading the whole thing. We also received communication from the Sloan Fire Department requesting that the overpasses be left in place. From the Sloan Township trustees, they also recommended leaving them in place, citing that they're still useful for school buses, fire departments, and EMS to access areas both east and west of the interstate. And finally, we received an email from Wayne Johnson of AGP noting that Ag Processing Incorporated would like to see the overpasses remain in place to avoid congestion in the spring and the fall. I'll pass these on to the auditor to be added to the record.
I have a motion to receive.
We'll move that.
Second.
All those in favor of receiving, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Passes 5-0.
With that, I leave it to your discretion, Mr. Chairman. Again, the secondary road department still feels that they serve a useful transportation function. The northern structure at 290th Street carries 90 vehicles per day, average daily traffic. The bridge at 310th Street carries 100 vehicles per day of average daily traffic, which is in the moderate range for a gravel road for Woodbury County. Spring and fall, that traffic is much heavier. The reason the department supports these structures remaining in place is to avoid placing slow-moving agricultural traffic in the mix with the traffic at the Sloan exit, where we have over 2,000 vehicles per day on the Winnebagus leg of that road, and a similar amount going eastbound. We also have heavy trucking and other traffic going on at the Salix exit to the north. These do offer a safer alternative for that slower moving traffic to avoid that heavy vehicular traffic.
Thank you.
Turn it over.
For the good of the public, if you happen to pick up one of the agenda sheets, item number 1 there is under the main heading is this is a formal meeting during which the board may take official action. Item number 1 says anyone may address the board on any agenda item after initial discussion by the board. Make no mistake, you will not be ignored, but may we please talk about this and then amongst the board, and then we'll move on with public input, and we'll at least ask. So I don't want anybody to feel like they're going to get left out here. So I'll just say it. I know that $3 million can go a long ways towards repairing other bridges and other parts of our infrastructure. I, for one, have zero interest in removing those bridges, and I would rather see the state use their money to raise the bridges to meet federal specifications. Sir.
I've received several calls on this, which has been very helpful. I believe these bridges serve a vital purpose, and to remove them would hinder further economic development in the area.
So we got 3-0 because I didn't even want to look into it, but anybody, I guess we should probably ask if there's anyone in support of closing the bridges here.
Mr. Taylor.
Well, I'm not the person in support of it. I do thank Mark for bringing this forward to us, because fiduciarily we at least have to look at them, but I have no interest in taking those bridges out of there.
Mr. Taylor.
And I'm going to just echo what all 4 of you said. Rarely do we get 50 people for a public meeting, 100 signatures, 300 vehicles per day in business, emergency services, and secondary roads all agreeing on one issue. So I want to make sure everyone's heard, but you may be preaching to the choir as well. So.
As a member of the board, I will ask if there is anyone that is in favor of removing the bridges by a show of hands. Not all at once. I can't count that fast. By an equal show of hands, can you show me how many want to raise the bridges, leaving them in place? Does the board, does anybody on the board feel there's a reason to ask for vocal input from anyone in our audience today?
I think if we know how we're going to vote, I think we just move on and save everybody's time today.
We won't make it out of here alive, I'm sure. In the spirit of emergency services and the ag industry, I am just completely in favor of those bridges being there. I've made the comment to one old friend over there, driving these roads at 55, 60 miles an hour, driving those 4 miles to get from point A to point B is nowhere near 10 or 12 miles an hour with a 28-foot wide combine and potentially blocking traffic and so forth like that. So I will move. How do we want to word this, Mrs. Deputy Auditor?
First, you'll need to close the public hearing.
That's good. Thank you.
Close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Radig, second by Taylor to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. I move to ask the Iowa DOT to raise both overpass structures as proposed.
Spelling it R-A-I-S-E, right?
Sure. Motion by DeWitt, second by Ung, to ask the Iowa DOT to raise both overpass structures as proposed. Any further questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. I expect you'll probably stay for the rest of the meeting, just because.
Say, Mark, did they give you any type of timeline?
Related to this topic.
We do?
The project work, I'll be able to report to the board back on that now that they have support of keeping those in place. I'll also prepare a letter for the board chair's signature.
Okay, is that what you
We
needed?
do have a motion on to sign a letter to the DOT if you'd like to, informing them of the decision the board has made today.
Okay.
I'll move that.
Second?
Motion by Radig, second by Taylor to
Direct the chair to sign.
direct the chair to sign a letter to the DOT.
Mr. Chair,
Sir.
you have a hand.
Sir, would you please come up to the podium?
Thank you, Mark, for your support. I appreciate that. Thank you, guys, everybody. But when will we see a document from the DOT that has been okayed, that they are going to officially make that that they are going to be moved from the DOT itself?
That would probably be a question for Mr. Nera.
The projects to raise the bridge are both in the 5-year program. I believe they've got a 2020 or 2021 timetable on raising those structures in place. Whether they'll be doing them both at the same time or as part of a single contract, I can't tell you that yet. I don't know if that construction period has yet been set.
The DOT is just trying to get their ducks in a row on who's doing what first, I suppose.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
But will there be a document saying that the bridges, we have agreed that the bridges need to be raised?
Yes.
There will be a document saying that?
Yes.
No, there will not be a document saying that. The DOT has already recognized that there is a need to raise them. They have initiated this project and requested the input of the Board of Supervisors on this.
Okay, that's what I was assuming was right.
Officially that it,
Because
they
we-
agree with it, you agree with it, but do they agree with it that it's going to go up?
Yes.
Okay.
Sir, can you please provide your name and address?
Dan Lee, Salix.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
So we got,
Okay.
did we ever vote on that?
Vote on the motion for you to sign the letter.
We have the motion, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay, we just need to vote?
Yep.
Okay, for the
Letter to the DNR?
For the letter to be signed by the chairman authorizing, asking the DOT to commit to raising these bridges. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are on to item
Did
9A.
you finish item 8?
No, we deferred that for a week.
Oh, very good. The other item I have is 9A, which is to allow the road department to trade in our current equipment trailer. Subsequent to the letting, Murphy Equipment gave us a bid for the trade-in. It wasn't part of the bid that was open, but they did offer us a bid for the trade-in, seeing there were none, and at my request, they've offered $11,900 for the trade. We did some exploration on the auction market for trailers. There wasn't anything that really fit this well. The range was from about $7,500 to the mid-teens for trade-in value on a 21-year-old equipment trailer. This would help our budget to be able to trade this one in. And the price is within the range of trailers.
I'll move we award the quote for the trade-in for $11,900.
Second.
Motion by Potabom, second by Radig to, what was it, accept the quote?
Award the quote.
Award the quote.
For trade-in.
Excuse me. Any other questions for Mark on the issue? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 10, Election Department, canvass the River Valley special election.
Hello, Steve Hoffmeyer, Deputy Commissioner of Elections. I've got the canvas here for the River Valley Community School District special election on a bond issue. It was defeated. There were 111 votes yes and 143 no. Just need you guys to receive that, and then I've got the forms here for you guys to sign.
I'll move to receive.
Motion by Radig, second by DeWitt to receive canvass of votes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Excuse me. We done on that one, Mr. Hoffmeyer?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Item 11, Building Services, approval of LEC study, future equipment repairs, replacements, and upgrade strategies.
Kenny Schmitz, Building Services Director. The item before you is in conjunction with future repairs and equipment replaces at the LEC. This is one of the key items, actually, that is currently holding me up, if you will, from completing my 20-year CIP project plan that the board has requested. I'm getting very close to finishing that. As you know, Resource Consulting Engineers did a study, or is in the process of doing a study for us at the LEC. In the process of doing so, Corey Metzger discovered that there were some areas within the facility that would be impacted by equipment replacements or change-outs, repairs, or upgrades. When we look at replacing those items within our CIP process in the future. He ran into obstacles that he felt were out of his area of expertise, and so he reached out to Goldberg Group Architects since he knew Goldberg Group had been working on projects with us, or possible projects with us for the LEC. What was part of Goldberg Group's study to look over projects in the past for us did not include some of the areas that Resource Consulting Engineers is currently looking at or trying to get us a list of equipment repairs and costs associated with those areas. And so as part of reaching out to Goldberg Group in return reached out back to me and said, look, we'd like to help you or help Corey with this, but that's out of the scope of our original contract with Woodbury County, which of course I agreed that it was, and asked Goldberg Group to put together a proposal for us that would encompass the areas that would Resource Consulting Engineers would need assistance on. And so that's the item I have before you today. Goldberg Group Architects has shown you has included the proposal here today for $24,850. I propose that we utilize funds from our 2017 intake project at the LEC to complete that study, which hopefully would allow me to, in the end, implement those project replacements and costs into the 20-year master plan.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Kenny. Just for the good of the board, and Kenny's been very good about working with his liaison as far as this item. We're really looking primarily at a large air handler. Is that correct? AHU1 as far as one of the first tier steps in this?
Yes, actually a couple of them, yes.
But that air handler Can you, just for the, so that the public understands, can you describe its age, its shelf life, and the maintenance that's occurred prior to in the last 31 years?
Sure, absolutely. The air handler units have actually gone beyond their useful or normal age.
Service life?
Yes, they're beyond their normal life cycle. And so we need to take a look at how we're going to replace those air handler units in the coming future. While they have been taken care of fairly well, again, they've reached their useful life, and so we've got to figure out how we're going to upgrade or replace those, and what impacts and implications that'll have for the facility while that's being done.
So that's the original air handler, is that correct?
They are, yes,
So
they're all
31
original.
years old?
Yes.
Okay. So in typical life is 15, 20 years?
Typical life is, usually probably 20 to 25.
And one of the things I'm appreciative of this item and that it's very well vetted and working with Goldberg is the transportation and what to do with those inmates, because this is getting to the point where, because this wasn't programmatically planned prior to the end of its shelf life, so to speak, if that air handler goes down, we would have to do emergency relocation of approximately 200 inmates potentially.
Yes, potentially. That's a possibility. Again, it would depend on what kind of an equipment breakdown that we had. If it wasn't serious, it could be something like, it could be a leaking coil that could be replaced in maybe 2 or 3 days, or repaired, I should say repaired in 2 or 3 days. If it had to be replaced, it could be up to 6 weeks. So those are the types of things, we're looking at and trying to determine.
And the last question, just that original jail was built with a capacity of about 90. That's my understanding.
Right.
We're at a capacity of 224. Were there modifications along the way in order to account for that increase that you know of?
No. There were some adjustments made to correct some problems, but as far as the size and expanding to accommodate for the population, no. It's stayed the same size as far as all the ducting and everything like that's the same original size, which is part of our problem today.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else have any questions for Kenny? I would move to approve Goldberg Group Architects' proposal in the amount of $24,850 to
Second.
start the study. Motion by DeWitt, second by Taylor. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny.
Okay. Sorry, one last question. How long do you think the process will take?
It's tough for me to say, and Larry's not here to speak for himself today.
Let's give him a challenge and tell you 2 weeks.
I'm going to say a couple months.
We got the 2.
Thank you.
Item 12, Mr. Auditor, select and accept a proposal to provide voting equipment to Woodbury County.
Pat Gill, Woodbury County Auditor. This item is to accept a proposal for replacing the county's voting equipment. We did an RFP in July. There are 3 vendors that are certified in Iowa that could respond to the request, and 2 of them did, Adkins and Sons and from Clinton, Missouri, and ES&S from Omaha. To just provide a little background, in 2005, the county spent $550,000 in order to purchase equipment at that time. That was most of that money came from the federal government, Help America Vote Act. Since that money's gone away, the companies actually have come down in price a little bit on the equipment, so that worked out nice. Of course, I think they unless we could have got federal government money. The equipment usually lasts for about 10 years. We did it in 2005. I put off purchasing the equipment because I've been trying to work with the Secretary of State's office, and they actually in favor of the proposal to use vote centers in general elections and primary elections, but the legislature hasn't seen fit to pass that. So we have to stay with the 44 county or precincts that we have in Woodbury County. So that forces us to buy more equipment than what we really wanted to. So we got proposals back from Adkins and Sons and from ES&S, and the proposals, when they came in, they actually proposed more equipment than what we really needed. At that point, ES&S was, just far as the implementation price, ES&S was the low bid at that point. They are the vendor that we currently use. And but we asked both companies to come in and do a demonstration. Steve negotiated with them as far as the equipment that he felt that we really needed to get by with what we need in Woodbury County to conduct elections. And as a result of that, they came in, actually Adkins and Sons is about $10,000 cheaper just on the implementation part of it. But if you look at the maintenance agreements, 3.5 years, ES&S would be the cheaper alternative. But one of the things that we really considered, and when we looked at the equipment, we had the entire staff, that people in our office that look at the equipment and test it and work with it. And everybody, the consensus was to stay with ES&S. And one of the big reasons is that I had Steve wheel these carts out here. There's an expense there, and I forget how much we paid for those carts. But ES&S, the new equipment, we will be able to utilize those carts with just some minor adjustments to it. The equipment from Atkins and Son would not work on those carts. Their emergency slot and things are on the back side of it. We would have had to completely redesign the way that we deliver equipment and that sort of thing. And since the proposals were that close, and the staff, the consensus was to stay with ES&S, we didn't even look at trying to figure out how we would use the other equipment. So the recommendation is to go with ES&S based on the proposal they have, and what I'm asking you to do is to approve going with ES&S, and we'll work with the terms. ES&S will then provide us with a contract that we'll have the county attorney's office review, and if none of those terms change, then we're just authorizing the chairperson to sign that agreement today. He won't sign it today, but once we've reviewed it and all the terms are the same, we'll do that. If anything changes in that term, we'll bring it back to the board and ask for the authorization to sign at that point.
I'll move the auditor's recommendation.
I will second. Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt, to select and accept the proposal from ES&S and authorize the chairman to sign a sales order agreement. Any further questions for the auditor?
And that's subject to review of the county attorney's office.
Subject to review of the county attorney's office. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reports on committee meetings. Anyone?
Sure. Had a Health and Wellness Committee meeting earlier today. Some news items are claims right now are pretty stable, pretty easy to predict if next quarter is the same as this one, which is helpful to have those periods. We also will be offering, the board can look for an agenda item in the next week or two of bringing on the option for payroll deductions for severely discounted Four Seasons Health Club memberships. So that's good news, and apparently the City of Sioux City already utilizes this, but in a nutshell, a family plan is less than an individual plan, even at the corporate rate, without this sort of agreement. So I think it'll be good, and it's trucking along.
Sure, anything?
No, just Kenny kind of stole the thunder with we had a meeting with the sheriff's office, and that was the result, so.
Okay. Marty?
The Conservation Board and WIC kind of went together. They're both thrilled that we may get the fiber optics out to the Pico Center, because they, I know they can't try to run more than 2 computers and the whole thing shuts down. And we had the guy from DOT was putting on a slideshow for us, and after the 3rd slide he gave up because it took so long for it to buffer to where he could use it. So we're crossing our fingers that whether it all will hold up, and we'll get that done yet this fall.
Anything, Keith?
Nope.
Round 2 of citizen concerns.
Nice glasses.
Thank you. Pat Gill, County Auditor. I spoke with Rocky a little bit about this already, the chairperson, sorry. The canvass for the general election would be, what is that, November 12th? Or no, 6th, 13th. Anyway, the day before is Veterans Holiday. And we scramble every year trying to put that canvas together, and we end up with errors and have people come back and have to sign things, and we're trying to locate people because we're not here on that day before. So we're asking the board to consider, it's legal to do it, it's just to have a special meeting the next day in order to do the canvas separately from your regular board meeting. We do that before, and I'm just begging that you give us a little extra time, and at least 3 of you come in on that extra day to do the canvas. Please consider that. Thank you.
Sir. Any other citizen concerns? Name and address, please, sir.
Don Lord, Sloan, Iowa.
Okay.
All right. I realize this is probably a little bit out of time because this had to do with the overhead issue, but I would like to thank the board for their action on the overhead issue. And all of you, please know that your action has guaranteed a positive effect on the livelihood and safety of this area for generations, not just now, a long time. So thank you again very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Frank Huseman. I'm representing New Cooperative. We have a number of grain facilities in Woodbury County, and just as Mr. Lord mentioned in reference to item 9B, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the board for taking all the actions into consideration. I know there's a lot of places to spend $3 million, and believe me, we are, as businesses, going through the same situations. And on behalf of a number of the people that were here, I thank you for taking the concerns and taking the time to listen to what people were thinking and doing what I think is the right decision in leaving those, and it is greatly appreciated from a business standpoint and from the ag community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Another citizen concern, anybody? Hearing none, board concerns. Sirs? We are adjourned.